And I am a trained remote viewer. I'm a mantrista, which means I'm part of a movement where we use mantras, mudras, and other mental techniques to recreate a reality that we're not happy with. I'm a business consultant. I actually love business. I really do. I've had a business card since I was 14 and started my own business when I was, I believe, 21, and it still is operational now. It's over 50 years old. Excuse me, my mascot wants to join us. Today I want to talk about unseen factors in business, which is what I usually talk about. Um, and I want to talk about the members of your team. What kind of people do you have working for you or with you? Do they have your same intentions? And I'm going to go into just one particular type of person that recently I realized that the discrepancy between what's important to them and what's important to me is so big that the relationship has a hard time working. And that is when you are dealing with somebody who has survival issues, or when they were very young, they, for whatever reason, lived situations where they needed to survive. Now, we can say that I have that issue, and that is true because there were times I was left without food, I was tortured, I was sexually abused, I was left in a cave to train my mind, I was whatever. But I don't have survival issues when it comes to money, which is interesting because my family was not well off at all. I was just thinking today, in my family, we never bought boxes of Kleenex because if you'd had no money, a box of Kleenex was really not necessary. You could just use a towel. And I know that sounds like, oh, wow. Well, everybody has different experiences. And one of the things that my grandkids, when I tell them a little bit about my experience in Tibet, the thing that they found the most interesting was that there was no toilet paper in Tibet. No, there was no toilet paper in Tibet. We were up on a mountain. There was no running water. There were no toilets. No, there was no toilet paper. Oh my God, Wela, what did you do? The thing that was been done on this planet since the planet began until we started with toilet paper and Kleenex. So people that are like really fastidious maybe would be upset by certain things that I don't find that important. I bathe twice a day. My house is very clean. My housekeepers come and they tell me that it's very easy to clean here because everything's in order and it's clean. It's just some attitudes. Okay. So I realized several months ago that I have a very hard time dealing with a particular person. And I realize it's because that person has survival issues. That person literally, their people, too high a percentage of time, don't have enough food to eat. Well, I'm familiar with not having enough food to eat. It was part of my training, whatever. I'm still kind of iffy about the memories about food when I was in that mountain in Tibet. But the point of the matter is that when I deal with people today, I don't deal with them coming from a place of that type of survival. Kleenex, maybe? Not food. Okay. So why would that be a problem with a relationship? And now we're talking about employees, but this person was not an employee, but I have had employees that are like that, and it just doesn't work. This particular person is an indigenous person. And for a couple of years, because of their incredible skills, I worked with them. It was a tribe. I worked with a particular person, but it was an entire tribe that I had an astral relationship with. In other words, we would meet in the other dimensions astrally while I was in my bed at home and they were in their place, whatever. So I really liked the person that I was working with, but eventually the relationship ended because of survival issues, their survival issues. They adored me. And I know that that's true. But the income that I was providing them with was so important because of the survival issue, the kids that they had that needed to eat, that they would make choices that if they didn't have survival issues, they would not have made. Darn, you know what? I'm not trying to be sexy, but this is looking like a little bit too low, even for a regular chat. Okay, we got that taken care of. So at that time, I did not realize that gap, my intention, their intention. We both, the tribe, the person I dealt with, myself, we both wanted the same thing for the world. We wanted to liberate them. And they knew about the mind strings. They knew about unknotting the mind when you had a big trauma. So this is great, totally compatible with what I was researching. But I had to end the relationship because they did several things in a row, trying to position themselves in front of me when I would get public exposure and bring them along. But it was because of their survival issues. They needed to be front and center. They needed to be needed. They needed for to be important. They needed to be seen so that the stream of money would continue. But honestly, the last thing that happened was I set up a PR event that cost me several $1,000s, which is not that much money. But for the number of people that ended up coming, it was a ton of money. I think we may have had less than 20 people there. But there was a big battle with the event. This was years ago. And I realized that the weird things that were happening was because the entire tribe was positioning their spokesperson who was coming to the event for him to be front and center. But it was my event. I was introducing the need for doing mantras for the election 2 or 3 elections ago when everybody was at each other's throats. And I wanted to help for everybody's emotions to go down so they could actually hear each other in the national election. I didn't get any place. And the event was a kickoff. And it wasn't until recently that I realized how unfortunate that I cannot really be doing business with these people or even relating to them because now they know that they can get money from me. So I can't go back to just being friends because they're not going to tolerate that because they come from a place of survival. And that's not where I'm coming from. And I currently have people around me and working with me that come from that place. And I'm aware that they're looking at everything to see what it is that they need to position themselves to survive. And it really doesn't matter what I pay them. They're looking for more because that's what happens with people that are into survival. They're looking for more. So you might find it interesting to look even at your mate because it's possible that they come from a place of survival. And I'm just remembering now my husband from 22 years. And the big issue from day one till the end, okay? No, they're not in survival for Portofino. He's saying that he thinks the majority of people are in survival mode. No, not that baseline food, money survival. We may be soon needing to survive, but that's not the place where most of us come from initially. It's a big difference. So, in terms of my mate, when a human being is between 13 and 14 years of age, it's crucial that they have no traumas, or if they have a trauma, that everything gets cleared because that's the age at which the astral, emotional, spirit body finishes forming and it's set in concrete. So if you have a huge trauma between 13 and 14, that trauma gets set in concrete, and for the rest of your life, you are fighting against that. My issues in terms of having been sex trafficked were critical at age 13 or 14, which is when I was sex trafficked with the president of this country. And it wasn't until a couple years ago that I realized, ugh, the fact that that happened then makes it even harder to clear. So in terms of my husband of 22 years, when he was 14, his father died. No, when he was younger than that, or 13, his father died. He was brought to the United States in the middle of the aftermath of the Cuban Revolution. And then the person who was taking care of him had a stroke and ended up bedridden, not mobile, with everybody taking the money that he had brought and using in whatever. And my husband was watching this at that critical age, 13, 14, and seeing that there wasn't going to be anything left to take care of this man that was in bed and never recuperated. And that left him in survival mode in terms of money. It doesn't matter how much you have because his uncle had millions when he came from Cuba and thought he was going back with millions. And so for my husband, it didn't matter how much we had, and we did well. It wasn't enough, and you couldn't use it. What for? And then he passed a year ago, and he still didn't use the money. And by the way, he still trapped the money that he left everybody. He trapped it so they couldn't get to it. Survival mode because of a trauma when he was between 13 and 14. So if you're doing business with someone and they're in survival mode from childhood or teens, and you're not, it might be important for you to know that so that you can know where they're coming from. And it would be important for you to know that having to do with your employees. Now, you can say, well, I don't have any way of knowing that. I'm not going to ask them. No, you're not. You don't have to ask them. First place, chances are, even if they were, they would say, no, they're not. It's not the case. What you have to be is very intuitive, which everybody is. You have to allow yourself to flow with intuition. You need to have the intention of knowing where everybody's coming from because that's a filter that everything goes through. I have survival issues having to do with conspiracy groups, with everything. So even like if I'm going to rent a place, I want to know who's living next door because it's been entirely too many times. The government has tons of money. The intelligence community, bottomless pits in terms of the amount of money they spend to keep track of the people they want to keep track of. So I have survival issues with another angle that is not food and is not money. Okay? So I'm not trustworthy in certain aspects because of that. And as a psychic, I have issues. So in terms of those couple of issues, I'm not trustworthy if you ask me a question that has to do with those issues. I already know that. So I will tell people I can't read that because that's an issue in my life. Therefore, I have a dirty windshield. And my psychic information comes in, but then it goes through a dirty windshield. And what I give you may not be as accurate as I want it to be. I think a point I want to make today has to do with something that Elon Musk put one of his posts. I don't remember what it was that he said. And I said, that's why it's so important to me to get out to people and to help to start training them to recognize that they are intuitive, that they have this natural gift. And they need to use it and they need to hone it because we are actually no longer in the age of information. We're already in the age of transformation. And I can tell that from people. It's not, people wanted to know the entire storyline of everything. And then, okay, so then you do this. And now they want to, what do I do? I don't care about the story. I just want to know, what do I do? I need to get this done. What do I do? So, but people have natural intuition. These are gifts that, they're not gifts, they're skills. Your eyes can see, you also have other eyes that can see even more than that. You can hear, you also have other ears that can hear more than that, etc. People need to be able to hone their instincts. In business school, they call it creativity, which is very silly, but that's okay, because creativity is in the second chakra, and that's not where your psychic abilities are. So obviously wrong, but that's okay. Because you need to be able to figure out these things or understand these things, have this information available so that you can know where people are coming from when you're dealing with them. Now, I want you to pay attention to something. The lighting here has not changed. When I started this chat, everything was like an orangey color. It's lightening up. When I saw that orangey color, today has been like a very tough day for me. Good, but tough day. That orangey color, when you get that on your skin, this is not a good thing. It's changing now because my mood is changing. So what I am giving off is changing. I don't know if any of you noticed that in the beginning. But this is no longer orange. This energy is not orange, and I am not totally orange. I'm still a little bit orange, which would be kind of like precancerous. But the whole thing was that color at the beginning of the chat. And you can, this video will be up, so you're going to be able to see it and see how things can change from minute to minute. So Estella is saying, yes, she can see and she can tell. In other words, when I started this, I have been in a rage the entire day. Legitimate rage, but still a rage. Estella is saying, I'm worried and scared. Totally true. Totally true. So your instincts need to be developed. If everything that everybody is saying ends up happening from the Bible, the Mayans, the dolphins, the government, everybody, things are going to get a little bit iffy, if not a lot iffy. And you can't trust the government to start out with. They don't know what's going on. We're in a paradigm shift, collapse. They don't know. Journalists don't know what's going on. Apparently, they were all paid off a long time ago, and they haven't been giving us accurate information. But every human being has the ability to know everything that happened in the past, in the present, and today. You do too. You don't trust yourself. So maybe you need to start today to do this mantra. Please, God, help me with my intention to allow my intuition to flow. Please, God, help me with my intention to allow my intuition to flow. Your intuition is there. It's information. Everybody has it. There are no exceptions. There are blockages, but there are no exceptions. When children are born, they see everything. I'll never forget one day, my husband and I were arguing about something, and my daughter, who was 2, was leaning up against the door frame and looking at us. And I looked at my husband, I said, she knows what we're talking about. She knows what's going on. He said, don't be ridiculous, she's 2. I said, look at her face, she knows. And he looked at her and he went, oh my God, okay? They know everything, and children suffer a lot because they know. And then we think that they don't know, or we pretend that they don't know and that they didn't notice, and they did. And then they learn to turn it off. ADD is a person with an extremely long mind string that reaches into other dimensions and then gets scared and pulls back in. And then that mind string kinks up because what they're seeing is a bit much. And they've been told that what they saw, that was not there. That spirit was not there. Well, it came out of the closet. For centuries, spirits have been coming out of closets. But it's not accurate, right? Come on, come on, come on. They come out from under the bed. So Start with that mantra, repeat it a lot, and really be open. When I used to do intuitive training, a couple of times I did very expensive weekends in which I would get like 5 people maximum, and I'd spend the weekend with them, just 8 hours a day. And what I found after the first weekend in terms of intuition training was that they were all intuitive from the first little exercise to the last, but they didn't trust themselves. So I realized that I could never train somebody in terms of intuition by themselves, regardless of how much they were going to pay me or wanted to pay me. There needed to be a group. Why? Because we would have a situation. I'd say, okay, everybody look at it. They'd look at it and what did you see? Then 2 or 3, let's say 5 people, which is what I had in those 2 groups. 2 or 3 would say what they saw, and then the other 3, no, we didn't see anything. I didn't see anything. And then once a couple of people said something, one of the 3 that said that they didn't see anything would say, oh yeah, I saw that too. And I would say, but you said you didn't see anything. Well, yeah, but I didn't know if I was just making it up. And I didn't know if that was accurate. And I would say, but I didn't ask you if you were accurate. I asked you what you saw. Well, yeah, and I said, you saw something, but you didn't trust yourself. And now it turns out that you do because the other person saw the same thing. And that's what you all need to know. You're not making it up. You're seeing something. Now you may misinterpret it, which I've done 2 times in my life. I've done that. That's not true. I've done it a lot more than that. But what you're seeing is real. That doesn't mean you go and you sell off all your stocks or you whatever because you saw something. There are many different avenues of information, and certainly you shouldn't be making major business decisions. I can tell you that with remote viewing, the government never did anything based on what one person said. They had 3 people who did not know each other, did not know what the other person was reading, and did not have a lot of information. 3 people would read a situation, and that would be given to the person that needed it, and then they would do whatever. It wasn't just one person. And I realized only several years ago that if somebody asked me a question, I would get the answer and it would be accurate. But if somebody else asked about that same situation, they would ask a question, I would give them accurate information, but the angle would be a teeny bit different. I was like, but that's not possible. Yeah, it is possible because we create our reality. That person created a reality and that one created a different reality. And when I was reading the reality that each one of them was creating. And it wasn't off by that much, but it was enough to make me uneasy and like, did I make a mistake? I didn't make a mistake, but I did learn that there is not just one truth because of the nature of how we create reality. So I'm going to end this here. Actually didn't know how I was going to be able to do 20 minutes. I've been so out of it today, but I am very pleased that the colors are looking very good. I no longer look precancerous, and I am no longer emitting precancerous light. Okay. So I'm going to end it now. You have a couple of Portofino. Should I change my physical place of business? I'm not sure I can switch that quickly, but okay, Tela, it is starting to get pink around me again. I'm no longer precancerous. I'm now loving. This is good. Okay. And if you don't believe it, go to the beginning of this video, which will stay online, and you'll be able to see the difference. And no light changed. I didn't change anything. But I changed. So the reality I create changes. Should you change your physical place of business? I'm not able to get you a clear answer, which is interesting, but I think maybe because I know what you do and I love what you do, And maybe my little emotional side got a little bit caught up with it. Okay? So I'm not going to answer any questions today, even though I did ask that you ask questions, and I apologize. And that's it. Every day that goes by, you are more in need of good, concrete information in order to make decisions. And the best thing for that is, well, in my case, I have people that I could call and say, please check this for me. In other words, I have people that are good psychics. They don't earn a living as a psychic. They're people that I've kind of trained. And I can call them and say, would you please check this for me? And I don't give them a lot of information. Everybody needs that, in my opinion, but everybody also needs to learn to allow the flow of psychic information that's inside of them and it wants to come out, allow it to flow. And then always do a double check, ask other people. You never make major decisions based just on one fountain of information, ever. Including if you ever had a meeting with me and I would, first place, I don't usually recommend things because the future is elastic and plastic. But if I get you the information you're asking about, kind of it becomes a little bit obvious. It should be obvious to you what it is that you should be doing. And for that, you need to ask kind of the right type of questions, which is also another thing. The prioritizing, the proper prioritizing of information. But we'll talk about that at another time. So I'm going to go ahead and not hang up because this is not a phone call. I'm going to go ahead and call it quits. But if you like, we can leave the music on and let's do 5 minutes of the mantra of, if somebody would put it on again, please God help me with my intention to allow my intuition to flow. If somebody would write that, and I'll put the music on and you can stay with us. The mantras are repeated silently in the head and you release your breath through your mouth. Okay? So I'm going to put the music on. If somebody would put the mantra on, that would be great. See you on Thursday at 3, another business chat. Thank you for joining me.